Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I have been fighting carpenter bees. If anybody out there knows a good way to get carpenter bees, whatever they do they bite holes into your wood, and they get these little holes, and they go up in them, and you can see it's like sawdust laying around. Well, I sprayed this stuff in there, and it killed some of them, but I tried to use one of those, they have like these things that catch them with holes in it where they go in and they can't get out. But I haven't been able to catch them in those. So if you know a trick, let the Digital Asset Investor know, because I've got a problem here. Wanted to remind everybody, Kava 10 launches in 2 weeks. Ethereum Cosmos, 15 plus EVM protocols on day one. Complete Ethereum infrastructure stack. Are you ready for Cosmos EVM? Give them a follow, because these guys, they're doing updates like almost every day, and they're also doing some contests at Kava_platform. This link will be in the description of the video, very top. Brad Garlinghouse was on Bloomberg today. There's 3 parts. Listen up. Here we go.
I know. Now joining us is Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse for an exclusive interview. Brad, it's great to get to speak with you. One of my favorite parts about doing this show in particular is the audience is really engaged, and they always are tweeting things at us during the show, after the show. And a consistent question we get is, when are you going to talk about Ripple and the SEC? So I'm glad we are finally getting to do so. Can you just give us the latest on where you stand in this case?
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me. I think it is, as you introduced, the reason why the Twitter crypto community cares so much about this question is it's not just about Ripple. It really is, as was introduced, that the whole industry is impacted by this decision. And the core question, as was kind of set up at the beginning, boils down to a 1946 Supreme Court case that has become known as the Howey test, a test to determine is something a security or not. And look, at the end of the day, we have other parts of even the United States government who have called XRP the digital asset that's native to Ripple's technology stack. It's been called a currency. It's been called property. The irony is the only country on the planet that thinks XRP is a security is the United States SEC. The case has gone well. Yeah. It's still playing out. You know, the SEC, in our judgment, has certainly moved slowly. Typically in these situations, when the SEC brings the case, they want to move quickly. They have been dragging their feet. Gary Gensler said recently publicly that justice delayed is justice denied, and unfortunately, justice is being delayed here by continuing efforts by the SEC to push things out.
Okay, well, Brad, our litigation analysts here at Bloomberg Intelligence think that the SEC ultimately is going to win this. That's just an opinion. It's a hypothetical scenario. But in that scenario, how does Ripple move forward?
Well, look, I think the Howey test is being stretched beyond recognition. And again, there's a 1946 Supreme Court case. So the idea that XRP, which we use as a currency, the idea that that's a security, I think is just misguided. But look, unfortunately, Ripple is already operating in a world where it's as if we have lost, right? So in the United States, XRP has for all intents and purposes, there's no liquidity. It's been halted and frozen on most.
All right, that's part one. Here's part two.
That fact, Ripple had a record year last year. We continue to grow very quickly across our major product groups. Even Q1 was a record for us. Now, unfortunately, that growth is almost all coming from outside the United States, and we are hiring more and more people outside the United States. But our customer base now is about 95% non-U.S. companies, non-U.S. payment companies.
And what are you seeing out of those customers with regards to the use of the crypto assets, Brad?
The demand for our core product, which uses XRP to facilitate these cross-border payments, the demand for that grew 8x year over year. So from Q1 last year to Q1 this year, it grew 8x. And that's off a base already measured in the billions. Mm-hmm. So from our point of view, demand has skyrocketed. I just think it's incredibly frustrating that here in the United States, where we have led innovation in so many different industries, we have an agency that is overreaching and really constraining competitiveness and hiring people here in the United States.
I don't know what that
we
was.
kind of know how this plays out.
Somebody just screamed in their video, and I don't know what in the world that was.
Brad, I worked in Washington for a lot of years.
Let's go back and see what he says.
Innovation in so many different industries. We have an agency that is overreaching and really constraining competitiveness and hiring people here in the.
I don't know what he said, but it sounded interesting anyway.
The question I asked before, because it seems like what the SEC is going after, and for that matter, the CFTC, is a look at the use case, and I guess how they determine, at least in their viewpoint, the use case for crypto assets ends up becoming, I guess, the base case for what type of regulation you end up with.
I think that's super fair. I think the different use cases, and one of the things I have certainly pushed from the earliest days of my tenure here at Ripple is it's all about utility. And there's going to be different shapes and different sizes. We're going to live in what I describe as a multi-chain, multi-crypto world. There isn't going to be one winner to rule them all. And I think the way the SEC here in the US at least has acted is, hey, we'll comment on Bitcoin, but we won't even comment anymore about Ether, despite previously leadership of the SEC saying that Ether is not a security. So I believe very much utility does matter. The facts and circumstances matter. But time and time again, what we find is the CFTC is the most appropriate regulator for this industry. And I think you find that uniformly across the whole industry.
So, Brad, you talk about how the U.S., this is kind of a U.S.-specific issue in many senses. How do you see that being formative?
All right, and then there's a part 3.
Formative for the crypto industry here in the States. How far behind does America risk becoming?
Well, I think one of the key measures here is if you were starting a crypto or blockchain company today, whatever use case you might be, whatever utility you might be pursuing, would you start it here in the United States where you don't have clear regulation? Or would you choose a jurisdiction like Switzerland or the United Kingdom or Singapore or even UAE? Would you choose a country where you do have clear laws? The advice I give entrepreneurs and even the advice I give investors is if you're starting a company today, start it where you have that certainty and clarity so you can build knowing where the guardrails are. Here in the United States, we simply don't have that. We've been asking for that. One of the great ironies of this whole story here in the U.S. is the SEC at its core has been a group that demands transparency, demands disclosure. Yet they, in this case, are doing the exact opposite. They're hiding their notes. The judge in the case has demanded that they turn over notes to us. They've been resisting that for over a year. So in a world where the SEC is all about disclosures and transparency, they're doing the opposite here. They're claiming that this is the wild, wild west. Crypto is not the wild west here in the United States. These are regulated entities. It's just they want to be the regulator, and they're thinking more about what's kind of in the empire building of the SEC as opposed to how do we make the U.S. super competitive to lead in this industry as we did in the age of the internet back in the late 90s.
All right, Brad, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to get your input.
All right, then we had, he's cool enough to do it, so the official cool guy weighs in right after Brad Garlinghouse. He's asking Uphold about XLM, and I think this is a valid question.
Dear Uphold, you keep making me buy XLM on other platforms. Why can't you just let me send it to my cold storage? How hard is that?
I agree. For those of you that are not aware, we do like Uphold, but Uphold, when you buy XLM, you can't send it off the platform, and I've never understood that myself. Maybe they can fix that. Okay. Now, the official cool guy also made me aware of this from Flare Community. Boom. New F asset announced, Bitcoin. We're excited to announce Flare has been awarded a 7-figure Algorand Foundation super grant to develop Bitcoin Bridge into the Algorand ecosystem. And then Flare tweeted this, very excited to announce we're building a Bitcoin Bridge for Algorand. And then Algorand itself announced this. We are proud to announce our grant partnership with Flare, a new layer 1 protocol promising to connect everything by delivering cross-chain interoperability with the security of multi-chain. When I saw all of this, it reminded me of this picture of Brad Garlinghouse. This was Bitcoin 2021, and these guys, well, I don't have them popping up, but these are Algorand guys that he was hanging out with wherever he was. Okay, I got an email yesterday, or no, this morning, I think. And the email said this: "Hello, DAI. Those whales did not drive to that meeting." He's talking about the Ethereum, Joseph Lubin, when he said he was telling people how to buy their Ethereum in the ICO and disguise the whale purchases. This guy says those whales did not drive to that meeting. They flew in private jets. Now, they flew in private jets. That might be on a thumbnail. I like that quote. So go to the flight logs for the closest executive jet airport where they would have landed to attend the meeting. So that gave me the idea. I decided that I would look. This was the speech, okay? And here's where it was. It was on March 17th, 2014, and it was at the Hacker Dojo Large Event Room, 599 Fairchild Drive, Mountain View, California. So the closest airport I could find to that was San Jose International Airport, right down the road. It looked, I couldn't tell for sure, but it looked like within minutes of that location. So who knows what will happen out there? Maybe we'll get some sleuth that knows how to find flight logs and they'll show us what they got. Now this was interesting because I totally agree. All this censorship that went on Twitter. This guy says, one request for Elon, since he now bought Twitter. Please expose what was done to censor people over the past few years. Make the algorithms public. Expose the search bans, the shadow bans, etc. We want to see everything these people did to tip the balance of power toward their political preferences. We need transparency. That's the only way to expose the discrimination against conservatives. Now, I don't know. He's talking about against conservatives. I think they did it to, I don't know, mostly that, I don't know. I'm not weighing in on the political aspect of it. But what I am saying is there was censoring going on left and right, and that shouldn't happen in the United States of America, in my opinion. Oh, well. Now, then Elon Musk tweeted this out. Somebody was talking in a thread with him, and he says, the San Francisco office of the SEC were shameless puppets of Wall Street short seller sharks while doing nothing to protect actual shareholders. That is why I lost all respect for them. The San Francisco office, you say? You don't say. So far, we've found 2 short sellers of XRP right around the time the ETH was getting its free pass. Those would be Mike Novogratz and Multicoin Capital. On the hunt for the rest. And then I tweeted out, I'll bet dimes to donuts I know of a guy who was working out of that office. This is when the San Francisco office welcomed Bill Hinman as a new director of division. Now that doesn't mean that he worked out of that office, but we do know that Bill Hinman was in San Francisco working for various companies. So this is probably where he worked, just by coincidence, of course, right? And then John Deaton had retweeted one of Stefan Huber's. He says, the more we dig, the more we find. He basically told the SEC ethics office to kiss his ass. Remember, the SEC ethics office warned Bill Hinman. He said he didn't care what they had to say. The ethics office warned him he could be violating criminal conflicts laws, and he didn't give a shit. $15 million in a partnership A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, will do that. And what Stefan Huber is showing is a West Coast executive meeting 2017 with Acting Director of Corporate Finance Division at SEC, Bill Hinman. This meeting is sponsored by Simpson Thacher. This is not a joke. I wonder what the ethics office said about that. Right there, Simpson Thacher. This meeting between William Hinman, division. So this guy flipped the bird to the SEC ethics office, and nobody to this day is doing anything about it. Then there's this, our old buddy Mike Novogratz. I remembered this, but I just happened to run across it today. February 5th, 2020. Mike Novogratz is at a TD Ameritrade conference in Orlando, jumps on stage and starts bashing XRP. XRP will have another lackluster year in 2020. Galaxy Digital CEO Mike Novogratz recently told a room full of financial advisors. I wonder if he was betting dimes to donuts like he did in saying the SEC would say Ethereum was a security, but now it's not. Just a few days before the Bill Hinman speech. Keep digging. I smell something. And then there was this. Check this out. Look what Jack Dorsey tweeted. I'm so happy Twitter will continue to serve the public conversation around the world and into the stars. Into the stars, folks. Then Raoul Paul says, theory, Elon will try to run Twitter from satellites. No control by any government as SpaceX sits above local internet and it's hard to censor as Ukraine has shown. The world is changing fast. And I said, those Starlink satellites. The digital asset investor has made many calls about Starlink, SpaceX, PayPal, etc., Stellar, XRP. I don't think there's any coincidences here, folks. Remember this video right here? This is the most, of all the tweets I've ever done, this video of Peter Thiel. Remember, Elon Musk founded PayPal with Peter Thiel. This video of Peter Thiel has been watched more than any video I've ever put up, so it's worth you seeing it again. 663.9 thousand times.
And that's the kind of choice governments like.
And by the way, folks, this is him talking in 1999.
Network. And that's the kind of choice governments like China, India, some of these other countries are going to face. They will either have to shut down the telecommunications network and make it illegal for you to own a cell phone, or they will have to basically give up the kind of monetary sovereignty they've had and the enormous power that they've been able to wield as a result of this kind of sovereignty over the last many, many years. And I think this process is already full-fledged. The dollarization worldwide is going to be accelerated enormously by the technology. Now, the second theme is a little bit more speculative, and that is that getting rid of money altogether, going from digital dollars, from any kind of government-backed currency to purely private currencies. And what a private currency, or what private money, I think, fundamentally means is that there is no medium of exchange. You exchange value for value rather than exchanging value for something the government says has value for value. And whenever you have this intermediate step of the government saying something has value, that's where you have the subterfuge, the sort of legerdemain come in, the game of musical chairs, where every now and then a chair gets pulled out and it turns out that you're the one holding a dollar bill that's all of a sudden become worth a little bit less. And the kind of exchange of value for value, the classic model would have been some sort of a barter model. That obviously has enormous transaction costs associated with it. These transaction costs go down in a digital age. And the kind of model that I think is the most likely to take place is one where you have other kinds of financial instruments that are very, very liquid. The one I would cite in the UML disagreement, it's a disagreement on emphasis, is I don't think the big fights on this are going to be fought in Washington, D.C. I think that, actually it's for all the reasons Richard cited. The people in D.C. are completely backwards. They don't understand any of the technology, and even to the extent they can, it can't be stopped. You cannot stop things on the level of Washington, D.C. in terms of shutting down these encryption protocols, things like that. Network. And that's the...
How about that? Now, this guy right here is, and I put this one up today. Let's see how many people have viewed this one. This one has been viewed 6,311 times, and I just put it up today. This is David Sachs, a former PayPal executive.
So back in the early days of PayPal, and this is going back to 1999, so it's almost 20 years ago. We actually, our first T-shirt said, PayPal, the new world currency. And so there was this idea that we were going to create this new global currency. So back in the early days of PayPal.
I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that this guy said, what did he just say again?
So back in the early days of PayPal, and this is going back to 1999, so it's almost 20 years ago. We actually, our first T-shirt said, PayPal, the new world currency. And so there...
New world currency on the shirt. How about them apples? Let me write that down for a thumbnail. That's interesting.